did it like that, and now we do it like this. Like this. We did it like that, and now we do it like this.
And good evening, everybody, and thank you for choosing and joining us here tonight on King Jordan Radio. The date is Thursday night, February 26th, 2015. Tonight on the show, we'll discuss hot topics along with Michael Jackson. Some topics we'll be discussing is Whitney Houston's daughter, Rudy Giuliani's comments of President Obama, Madonna, and more. Tonight on the show, we're bringing on Terry Anderson. He was the bodyguard for 3 years for Mr. Michael Jackson. He is coming out with a book in June, and let me bring him on to the show. Good evening to you, Terry. How are you?
Hey, Jordan. How are you this evening?
Everything's good. Everything's good. Let's start off with the book. How's that going?
Well, we're moving. We're making progress with it. It's some issues that have come up that are challenging, but anything that ultimately comes out good is always going to have a challenge with it. But it's going to be a good book.
Right. And so you still tentatively want to have it out by June 13th, correct?
Absolutely. I would love to have it out. Yeah, I would love to have it out June 13th, and that's my plan. We'll see how it goes. I think actually won't be a day late or a day too soon before it does come out. I think it'll actually come out when it absolutely supposed to. But that's the plan, June 13th, 10th anniversary.
Yes, and that will be a Saturday, so we'll see if hopefully that'll come out maybe the day before, since it's a weekday, but hopefully it'll come out on that date. Anybody you want to call and you want to hang, you want to talk to Kerry Anson, the number is 347-857-2950. When you see people in the chat, you can join us. You know, I spoke to Tom Mesereau on Friday the 13th, and I asked him, since it was Blanket's birthday on February 21, which was Saturday a week ago, and it was Prince's birthday on Friday the 13th, February 13th. If they were listening right now, and if they are listening right now, what would you tell them?
Oh, man, I would just tell them to keep their head up, just to continue to do what their dad raised them to do, and to be innovative, be free, be loving, be kind, be gentle, be humble, and just be yourself, and just do what your dad instilled in you, and the values and morals and scruples and everything that he taught you. And not only him, I know they're around a good support system, the family. They have moral scruples and values, and just always, do what your dad and your grandmom and the adults around you have instilled in you, and happy birthday and enjoy life.
Absolutely, and one thing is not in question when it comes to Michael Jackson. Everybody, even his enemies, will say that he is the best father, bar none. Your thoughts?
Oh, without a doubt. Michael was an amazing dad, just from what I saw. And I'm not speaking from what somebody told me. This is what I saw and how I saw him raise his kids. He was loving, he was kind, he was gentle, but he was a disciplinarian. He required them to be very astute, that he made them study, he gave them the best teachers and the best tutors, and he equipped them with everything that they are going to need to succeed in society today. And I think he was an amazing parent. Obviously there were some, drawbacks to having a dad that is one of the most famous individuals in the world in terms of privacy and all of that, but there were some significant advantages to him being your dad as well, and he was an amazing dad.
Right. And if you had a chance after the trial was over, to spend some time in Bahrain, right, with him?
Yes, we spent not only Bahrain, we bounced around the Middle East, from Dubai to Oman, the Arab Emirates locations, and it was a very interesting time over there. Michael was recuperating and recovering, and he obviously did that. He was very serious about getting certain projects out in terms of, I think the Katrina song was a big project that he wanted to get out. Him and Sheikh Abdullah were working diligently with that, and various other artists as well. But it was a trying time for him as well. He had some challenges with child custody issues, and just the fact that he had just come out of the most serious thing he had ever experienced in his life that was jeopardizing his freedom. It was a challenging time for him, but prevailed at the time, and everything worked out while we were over there for the most part.
Now, you see him through the whole 2004/2005 trial. Compare his mannerism throughout the trial from that point, and then tell me how he was during the trial, and then finally when he was acquitted. What kind of differences did you see in Michael Jackson after he was acquitted?
Several emotional or emotions that I saw. He was afraid. At times he was excited when I, tried to encourage him and just, teach him about faith and pump his faith up and tell him that, you have to go to a different kind of source when you're dealing with this kind of adversary, meaning the Sneddon and the prosecutorial individuals that were involved in this big smear campaign, and but it was very tough. He was mentally challenged. He was physically challenged. Several mornings, he was physically sick. I mean, physically sick en route to the court, and a couple of times we diverted from the actual court and went to the hospital, and he was treated and hospitalized. I know on one occasion. And he was so sick, and it was very challenging for him, but it would be challenging for anyone. I always told him how, when I tried to encourage him, how strong I thought he was, because if you just think about the pressures of being who he was and how they tried to vilify him and just ruin his name, especially when deep down in your heart you're innocent. It's tough, and when you see that your money really doesn't have anything to do with it, thank God for a legal team like Tom Mesereau put together, him and Susan Yu and all of their associates and private investigators that were instrumental in that acquittal. It was an uphill battle. Yeah, it was an uphill battle, and he went through all kinds of emotions. Like I said, he was scared. Michael didn't really know if he was going to beat this thing, and I tried to, encourage him as much as I could. Yeah, it was something.
No matter who you are,
Yeah, you still have. You got to think. You have the responsibility. He still had. He had several.
There's no amount of money that could decide what the jury's thinking. Like we had with our verdicts.
Right.
We had O.J. Simpson, we had Robert Blake, we had some verdicts, but then there's other verdicts that go the other way sometimes. Jerry Sandusky, high profile, the snipers yesterday. So
absolutely. And Santa Maria was a very conservative area to have a trial in as well. You got to think about that. And but
the conviction rate was very high there.
Yeah, but Tom Mesereau, he's the man. I tell you, and Susan Yu and the team that they put together, just amazing. I wouldn't want to have any other person representing me in any kind of criminal trial. And thank God for him. But he put my Tom Mesereau as well. because Tom Mesereau was a beast. I mean, he's amazing. You know, when it got down to the nitty-gritty, and when we got down to the nitty-gritty, and he basically destroyed every one of their witnesses on cross-examination. And
that was the thing, Kerry. There was no reporting for the cross-examination. Basically, when it was direct, Diane Diamond and the ladies like Nancy Grace would come out and they would report the direct, but they wouldn't report on the cross-examination, which is so key and critical to the trial and the winning the case. Agree?
Well, absolutely. And I saw that that was a big issue. I said not only is it, I think, prosecutorial injustice, but the media slammed him too, because they were reporting, in some cases, just the opposite of what went down in the actual testimony. And that's when I realized, it's like, man, we got to go to a higher source than this. This is going to be above your money and above anything. We got to trust God on this and only count on him as our source. You know, and obviously Tom Mesereau, God put Tom Mesereau in Michael's life, and thank God he did, you know, but it was tough. And that brings out all kind of different emotions in you, especially when you know your money has nothing to do with it at this particular time. You can tell by the way they violated, you know, search and seizure, by the way they did certain things that were inappropriate in terms of your rights as an American citizen, and then just certain things that they did in court. It's like they were just trying to humiliate him and embarrass him. You know, there was a couple of, like I say, legitimate times he was ill. He was physically sick, and they wouldn't let him go to the hospital. You know, that kind of thing. So it was a mess, I tell you. And then you still have the pressures of, I got to be a dad. I'm still, people want me to produce. They want me to be successful, you know, to top this album. And at the time, I'm sure that was obviously not too that wasn't on his priority list, but just the pressures of life, you know, and not knowing that you're going to be a free man at the end, because you see how they're railroading this whole thing. And Tom Sneddon definitely, I think, had a personal vendetta, and I think he misused his authority, you know, doing this thing. But we prevailed, thank God, and Michael prevailed, you know.
Were there times where he sat back and just spoke to you personally during the trial? And if so, what were some of the things he would say to you? Yeah, there's several times, you know. At times he got excited, you know, when we would go out for a break, and he would ask me, "Did you hear that? He's lying." It's like, I know he's lying, but
really?
He got emotional?
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah. And then on the way to court several times, you know, it would be quiet. It wasn't a fun time, I tell you. You know, Michael would, from time to time, they would be quiet, and then all of a sudden you'd hear him crying. And you turn around, and, you know, I had several conversations with him. And, you know, obviously I'm there to protect him. So, you know, Mr. Jackson, is there anything we can do for you? Is everything? And his whole thing was, when I was talking to him and encouraging him and talking about faith and trusting in God, no matter what you saw yesterday, no matter what you saw on the news, no matter what these witnesses are saying, no matter what you think people view you as, you got to just believe in yourself. You know you didn't do anything. And I know it's hard to do because you're being bombarded with, you know, the just looking at these witnesses come in and just lying on you, especially people that you gave to. You were there for them in their darkest moment. You know, he took this family in, and, you know, once again, and this wasn't the only one that had done Michael like this. You know, he had been done like this in relationships, in business relationships. So it's like his trust level was, I'm sure, damaged. But, you know, just on the way to court, there was all kind of emotions. At times you would see him crying. You know, he would ask me, you know, how do you think you can you tell me this stuff about God and praying for your enemy. I said, well, I know it doesn't feel good, but you have to do it. I've had a personal incident that happened in my life, and I applied those principles, and that's the only thing that took the sting away and got it out of me, But when you've done all you can do, and you've spent your resources, and you've told people, and you've confided in people, and you didn't do anything, and then you see that the things are leaning towards one way as far as your guilt, just based on what these people are saying, it damages you, So it brings out all kind of emotions, and he went through that. Sometimes you would just see him staring off in the distance, and he wasn't there. Other times he's crying, his head is down, and then we can't get out in a defeatist type attitude. At times there's several photographs when on the way to court, I'm pumping him up and telling him these things and encouraging him and telling him that he's strong and that just leave it in God's hands, and God has put Tom Mesereau and Susan Yu in our life, and everything's going to be all right, And he heard it. I think sometimes it went in one ear and went right out the other. And a couple of times he yelled at me, when I was telling him about, man, you got to go to a higher source. You got to pray for these people and just pray for the happiness of their children and just give it to God. Cast your tears on God, because this is out of our hands. These guys are taking the system, the judicial system, and they're slamming you. And then the media is not on your side either. These people we're kicking butt in court. Tom Mesereau is filleting these guys in court on the stand. And then you see them come out after the break and diamond those characters or reporting just the opposite. What division of court were you in, But, like I say, through it all, it worked out. And, another thing, too, Jordan, is that he had friends. I know Steve Harvey called him a couple times on the way to court, on the radio, trying to encourage him. And yeah, Steve Harvey, absolutely. Yes, he sure did. And Damon Wayans, Whitney Houston.
Damon Wayans.
So, yeah,
Whitney
absolutely. I never heard that
called
name
him on his cell phone?
Come up. Yeah.
Called him on his cell phone,
on
just
my
like
cell
that?
phone. Absolutely. On the way to court.
So those are his real friends, would you say?
Absolutely.
Because those are the people who were there when he needed somebody the most. Because,
absolutely,
as Tom Mesereau pointed out, there were a lot of people that were his friends, but when it came time to the trial, they were nowhere to be found. True or false?
Well, I'm going to go into that in my book. I'm going to kind of leave some things just in reserve a little bit, so it'll be a good read. I'm not going to let the cat out of the hat yet, but there's some people that were not there. And then there's people that are well-known people that I've never heard anybody say anything about, but they were there for him. I saw Damon Wayans deliver a $10,000 chair. I guess he heard Michael hurt his back, and he delivered some chair to Michael and at Neverland. It's like, oh, my God, this is amazing, But I never heard anybody mention anything about Damon Wayans, and he was a constant supporter of Michael. And, he doesn't – some people don't know who he is, but I never heard anybody say anything good about him. And I know he supported Michael tremendously. I know Whitney Houston did. I know Celine Dion did. And
yes.
And I'm not talking about things that I heard. I know who was on the phone, and I heard certain conversations. Steve Harvey was very supportive. And, and at the time, Steve Harvey was not as big as he is now. But, and like, I think I heard somebody say, I think Mesereau said, some of the big name people distanced themselves from Michael, I guess because of public image or whatever. And I think that's crap. I really do. When your true friends are with you, they're with you, especially when they know you, But for you to distance yourself because a publicist says, let's kind of distance ourselves. Well, I mean, I don't know, but I'll go into that in my book, and it's going to be interesting. It really is. But He had an uphill
Absolutely.
battle. It was a very trying time during the court. It wasn't a happy time. It was work, I tell you, because we had to help him physically. I had to do my job, which is the physical security aspect of it. But also, when you see your client in a mental state that is not, healthy, you want to help him out too. If there's anything that you can do to encourage him and to edify him and to keep his spirit up, so he wouldn't get out of the car just looking just terrible, like defeated. At one time I remember we were on a break in court, and it was interesting because it was a short break. I don't even think we went out, but he started, crying. I could tell. I was like, man, don't cry in front of these people. And I remember telling him that. And sometimes I would talk to Michael like I was the boss, and I wasn't. He could fire me at the drop of a dime. But I didn't care. I didn't have any fear. I always look at God as my source, and I think that's why our paths crossed. He had a certain kind of guy in me. I respected him. I looked at him as a star just like everybody else. But I was there for a reason. And it was to encourage. It was not only to protect him and keep him from ever doing anything that would, publicly embarrass himself or anything like that. But there was really, and we had real bad threats, in terms of a physical aspect. But to see your client mentally just getting jammed, you got to have something to, edify his spirit and uplift him, and thank God, I did at times. So it was an interesting time. It really was, but it was hard work, I tell you.
Okay, we have a question from Twitter at MJFan1. Wants to know, you mentioned something about death threats in a previous show. Can you bring us up to date on, can you tell us about what you were talking about, death threats, I think you mentioned one time? This person wants to know. MJ fan.
Oh, we had a couple of death threats. I remember a couple of them distinctly because one guy was somewhere up at Santa Maria Court, and other times we were threatened that when we walked that catwalk going from the vehicle actually to the actual building, the court, that they were going to kill him. So, we had to deal with that as best as we could, and that's another part of the book that I'm going to get into because I liaised with the law enforcement agencies up there, and we wanted to show them that it was a different kind of security. The Nation of Islam was actually not in charge of his security, and from what I was told when I got there is that they didn't really work in concert with the law enforcement up there when they were in charge of his security. So when I came in, the first thing that I did is I went and met with all of the heads of the law enforcement, the Santa Barbara County Sheriff, the California Highway Patrol chief that was up there, Santa Maria chief, and their tactical teams and their traffic enforcement, and we worked together. I was there obviously representing Mr. Jackson in his behalf. I was there on his behalf, and but I did have a law enforcement background, and they respected me, and they shared some things with me that they were unhappy with when the Nation of Islam was actually in charge of his security. So we had to deal with that. But then at the end, it was just interesting, and this is when I had to apply some of the same principles that I was telling Michael when he saw just the lies and I mean, unfair smitten and just doing certain things in terms of violating his rights. Well, I noticed a distinct difference on the last day, and we had a serious threat. There were people that had threatened that if he was acquitted, they were going to kill him before he got to the vehicle. And then I noticed a couple of just changes. I would ask for certain things that I normally got when we were working together, and then at the end, I didn't. They didn't do that, and they knew the threat was serious. So I questioned that, and then I'll go into more detail of it when I in a couple of chapters in the book as well.
Have you thought of a name for the book?
We're going back and forth. It's going to be a good one. I can just say that. But we still haven't decided.
Absolutely. We're talking to Kerry Anderson here on King Jordan Radio. Come join us at 347-857-2950. Now, Tom Mesereau was very instrumental in not settling with Wade Robson or James Safechuck. He feels that it'll tarnish his legacy if the MJ estate pays out money, which they haven't yet, but that their history, Howard Weitzman in particular, has been of settling a case. At least we know of one. What is your opinion? Do you share the same thoughts?
Yeah, I would not settle at all. I'm with Tom Mesereau. Whatever he says, he's the consummate professional, and he's the ultimate lawyer. So I would be guided by whatever he said. But I definitely would not settle anything. And
the fans, the fans want him to take. The fans want him to take over the civil case, and Howard Weitzman Company put out statements to say, "Calm down, don't worry, we got it." Blah blah blah. I'm just paraphrasing, obviously, but they pretty much just want to do things the way they want to do things instead of bringing in, the Johnny Cochran of this era. When the guy who beat that big case, I don't understand why the MJ estate does not hire Tom Mesereau and Susan Yu.
I don't either. I really don't. I don't know why they wouldn't. I know Tom Mesereau is a criminal attorney, but I've heard Tom Mesereau speak on this, and if he says he can handle it, he's the man as far as I'm concerned. I saw him and his team battle a judicial system that broke the law as far as I'm concerned. I saw some things in court, and I just don't think it was right. I'm not speaking as one that is not experienced in court procedures. I've been in law enforcement a long time. I had been but some of the things that I saw, I couldn't believe it, and Tom Mesereau took that on, and he won. It was a landslide. You saw the results of the verdict, and I would love to see Tom Mesereau take that on because I trust him. I know his heart. I know he's passionate about it. I know there wouldn't be any ulterior motives in terms of, these guys talking this settle stuff. I just don't get that. I really don't.
Tom Mesereau came on here when you were on one time, I believe it was back in the summer, and he praised you with such heavily praise. What did that mean to you when he said that one of the very few people that Michael trusted was you? And I'm quoting, if you remember that time back in the summer when we were on simultaneously.
It's always good. It's always recognized, especially by a person that, is like Tom Mesereau. I'm glad he thinks highly of me. I always try to do the best that I can do and just, represent, my parents and my family. And it's good to be thought highly of, like Tom indicated. It's always good. Some people don't. I don't really, get too excited about it because there's always 10 or 15 guys that always have something bad to say, or a fan or something. I can't believe certain fans they go off on you. So you're not going to please everybody. But it's always good to have people to say kind things about you. And he recognized my sincerity, my loyalty. he knew that Michael trusted me, and some people say, "Oh, are you doing this for money?" Or, Michael didn't really trust you. Okay, like I told Michael. Michael knew what he did. I know what I did. I knew what kind of trust he had in me, and whenever I say Michael did something, I'm not going to embellish it. I'm not going to clean it up. I'm a straight shooter, and it's just good to be recognized, though. It really is, especially coming from somebody like a Tom Mesereau. I mean, he's an awesome guy.
Yes, indeed. That Super One also has, without getting into names, would you say, was there any other bodyguards that maybe didn't have Michael Jackson's interest without naming names?
I don't know of any. I really don't.
Were they all good, the people that you were around? We know one was going to testify against him before you got there. Chris Carter.
I don't know any of those people, and I don't know any of the guys after me. But I know my team was squared away. We had a couple of guys that were members of the Nation of Islam that remained.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that remained with me, and then a couple of those same guys worked even after I left. But we had to sit down and have an understanding, because we had to develop a trust factor. When Randy sat down and talked with me, I told him that I'm not going to have any other boss. I've worked in this industry before, and when it comes to security, Michael can tell me what to do and nobody else. He said, "Yeah, well, we got these guys that we want. Michael wants these guys to stay with us." And I said, "Okay, that's fine, but they're going to do what I say, because I have to be in charge of what my team, And we ultimately developed a real good relationship. Those guys are friends of mine to this day. But the other 4 or 5 guys that we had, they were all, ex-police officers and people that professionals in law enforcement that I knew, or that guys that didn't have law enforcement. They weren't retired police officers or anything, but I knew them, and they were trusted confidants that I had, and I knew that if something were to go down, we were going to win. I don't care what it was. And that's the kind of team I always want to have assembled around me when I'm given a task like protecting the most popular entertainer in the world, and especially when you got idiots out there talking about we're going to kill him before he gets to the car, and showing up at Neverland. We had some lady show up with a gun one night. She was just a nut.
A gun?
Yeah.
Some lady?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, at Neverland, absolutely. Yep. And, it was a big deal in terms of the security aspect of it. It's a big responsibility, But it was good. Our team was good. We were good. We worked together. We knew what we were doing. We were ready for anything that could conceivably happen, whether it was a medical emergency, a physical threat, whatever, And then ultimately we had God watching over us all. Because I tell you, if you really want to get anybody, they can be God. So you have to go to another source when it gets to that level. You can do what you can do as a professional to minimize the risk to the client. But ultimately, if somebody wants to get you, and if they're willing to die, they can get to you.
Yes, so, I mean, like you said, you got to pray to a higher source. That's the ultimate, that's one object. Any moments in Bahrain that were memorable? Did you go any special places? Any cool places that you and MJ went? And the kids?
I was just so glad to relax a little bit and not be I was glad to see Michael relaxed, and he was recuperating, and he was feeling better, and his whole disposition changed. You could tell he was like relieved, because oh my God, Michael was just afraid of the United States. Period. Anywhere in the United States, that man could live anywhere he wanted to live, but he chose to get out because of what happened. You know, and I totally can understand that when. You know, you have things in place, security teams. At Neverland, we had a security team there. We had a fire department there, and you do things to protect your family, medically or from a physical threat. And then you get a law enforcement agency that can just come in there and misuse their power, and that'll take its toll on you, you know. And for somebody to convince you, like Sheikh Abdullah, like that won't happen in my country, you know, it was a no-brainer for Michael to do what he did, if you ask me, especially those other countries have just as much or more than what we have here. You know, if you looked at the way we lived, oh my God, you know.
How long after he was acquitted did you find out that you were on your way to Bahrain?
3 or 4 days at the most.
So what, you got a message? You got a phone call? How did that work?
Yeah, it was kind of weird. It's like, we pack your stuff. We're going, pack all of your stuff. Like, really? Okay.
We're not going to Vegas. We're going to Bahrain.
Yeah, it's like we're leaving, you know. And we went to another individual's home first. And
right.
And then we went
king of Bahrain. I forgot his name. The prince, or whatever they call him over there.
Yeah.
Yes. What's your thoughts on him?
Yeah, that's where we ultimately wound up. He, I guess what you call is hosted us or whatever. But it was awesome. Excuse me. It was awesome because I got a chance to see Michael change back to himself. He was a broken man during the majority of the time I was with him at Neverland during that trial. He was broken, mentally and physically, just damaged, man. And you know, I totally understand. I commend him, and I told him all the time, it's like, man, you are strong. You really are. You know, to go through what you're going through.
During the court sessions at night, did you say to yourself, "Oh my God"? Did you pray like, I hope Mike gets through this? You know, this is the juror's hands. Let justice be served. I mean, I was an MJ fan, so I did it. You know, I was praying for MJ because I knew he was being framed basically. Did you ever go privately to yourself and say, "Please God, let justice be served"?
Absolutely. I had some serious prayer time, not only by myself, with my guys and with Michael a couple of times. We had some serious prayer time and then Michael he was attending church every Sunday. We went to church almost every Sunday. Michael, myself, Blanket, Paris, and Prince. Yeah, it was a church right up in right just close to the house that we went to, but we were there every Sunday.
Did the kids understand the things that Michael was being accused of? Did they have an idea?
I don't know, because he was real private with that. When we got back to the house, from time to time he would call me up to the room, but when he called me up to the room and he was having a difficult time and he wanted me to, he was like, "Tell me about that faith stuff," or tell me tell me about that scripture you talked about where you pray for your enemy and do good to those who persecute you and despitefully use your name. And we would have some lengthy conversations about that, but the kids weren't in the room at the time. But he was in bad shape then. It was like, okay, I'll try this. I've tried everything else. And that's not to say that he didn't have a relationship, because Michael was very astute with Christ, and I think he had an awesome relationship. He always made me say, No, you got to see Jehovah Christ. I was like, okay, that's the same thing. Jehovah is Jesus, So, but he had an awesome relationship. But it got down to a point, there's a scripture that talks about every knee shall bow and every tongue will confess. Well, his money didn't do it. His fame didn't do it, and he saw it. So it's like, okay, it's time to get on your knees. And, just, you got to think of the higher source, and I just happened to be able to convey to him in a very elementary kind of fashion, this is what I believe. And because he would always like, how in the world are you so confident? I said, because I know Jesus, and I believe that. And I'm not speaking from biblical days, before Christ, after Christ. I'm talking about some personal incidents I've had in my life. I've been in some hairy situations, and if it wasn't for my faith and me applying these principles that I was telling Michael about, I wouldn't be here, and I know it works, especially when you've done all you can do, you have no control over the situation. That's when you...
No dollar could do nothing.
Oh, man, you got to know
no money
God
could do nothing.
Because it's like money can't do it. You got the best lawyer. You got Tom Mesereau, you put up $3 million
he had a different attorney. Were you there for his first attorney that wasn't so good, according to Tom Mesereau, Mark Argos?
No, that was the Nation of Islam. They were in charge of his security then. I came after that. I think they were in charge when he went to the prelim. There was a preliminary hearing that he went to, and that's when he was dancing on top of the car and that kind of thing. But that didn't go down when he was with me. We had to do things a little differently than that. And
okay, when he went on the SUV, that truck there in right outside the court, in my opinion, I think by his body language, he was telling his fans, "Thank you for being here. We're gonna get through this, and everything's gonna be okay." I just think that all that emotion, and he's hearing preliminary stuff at this time, and I'm thinking that's what he's saying. And people try to make him like he's a nut just because he went on that van, and basically saying, reading his body language that we're going to get through this. Come hell or high water in early 2004.
I wouldn't have advised that. If I was in charge, he wouldn't have done that. At the time, no, but at the time, you got to think our jury was not selected. It's a very conservative, predominantly white juror pool up there. And you don't want that to be misconstrued as I'm Michael Jackson and I'm going to just cakewalk through this. We have to go up there and prove that you didn't do that, even though you're supposed to be, innocent until proven guilty. That wasn't the case. Yeah, so I think Tom Mesereau's thing was let's be very humble, let's be very professional. We're not going to give no concerts on top of the cars. We're not going to come in here with a bunch of security guys that are our whole thing was different. We had a different. I don't like sometimes you'll see me talk to people. I do security a lot different than other people. Sometimes executive protection guys are very standoffish. They don't smile. I don't do all of that because to me, I'm going to do my job. I'm going to be friendly. I'm going to be kind. I'm going to be humble. But you better not touch my client because I will turn into a beast, believe me. But you don't have to do that when you don't have to do that. So I think I was chosen for a reason. I had the expertise and the skill set to fit in. I think Tom Mesereau wanted a certain kind of security team around him. I didn't think he wanted it overbearing because of the area that we were in. I think he wanted us all to be kind of kinder, gentler, humble kind of guys, but yet and still he wanted his client protected, and I was definitely going to do my job. But the car incident, and I don't know what Michael's thoughts were, But I would have advised him against that. Now, I advised Michael against a lot of things, and he still do whatever he wants to do. Well, okay, that's fine. But I think at the time that was a mistake, because there are people up there that hated Michael Jackson still. You know, like I said, it was a very conservative area up in Santa Maria. And we didn't want to have that kind of image portrayed, that it was like celebratory or, you know, okay, fans, I'm Michael Jackson. Some people could misconstrue whatever he was trying to convey to his fans as being arrogant, or I'm going to get through this because I'm Michael Jackson. And I think Tom Mesereau wanted to, portray a whole different kind of, you saw none of that with my team. Even when we won, he didn't jump up on the car, you know. And that was definitely a time to do it. I wanted to, but it was a serious time that day, you know. And like I say, thank God it all worked out. I just wish he was here.
I was watching, our pal Luna Joe 67, who had a great video came out, and Frank Casio was talking to the YouTube that she uploaded. Luna Joe 67. Frank Casio was talking about the accuser Gab, and he said that this kid is not that type of kid that would let anything like that happen to him. This kid would not let that get there. This kid is an A1A liar, he said, and then he, cited J.C. Penney with the mother, and it just sounded like, wow, you really see and hear about this family. If you're the prosecution DA, and then how could you even trust this family to go on trial with?
That's because
your first question is
to me. I mean, you have ulterior motives. There's no way I would have put a witness like that on there. None of those witnesses. Tom Mesereau is the best in the business, I think. Like I said, if I ever got into any issue, I would want him on my team. But I could have cross-examined those people and filleted them. Just based on my limited experience with the legal system. They were liars, and it was proven that they were liars, and Tom Mesereau did an amazing job, but I mean, they gave him a lot of ammunition too. They were liars, period.
Yeah, I mean, what about the claim they were being held hostage? Meanwhile, she was getting a manicure, pedicure, whatever. I mean, there were all these times where she could have called out for help. Janet, the accuser's mother, and so many people came in and testified that, yes, there were phones all over. There were clocks all over Neverland, and I'm sure you could speak to that there were clocks, right, at Neverland. You know that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
that was ridiculous. I couldn't even believe they brought that charge. I don't see how they even filed that charge. I really don't. There has to be evidence to support the charge. And then not only that, even if there is evidence, are you going to be willing to convey to a jury that they really did this or didn't do this? And I don't see how, but that just goes to show you how Tom Sneddon and that whole team up there, they were out of line, man. You talk about a prosecutorial nightmare, and I think they misuse their power, because a person like me could say, this is not, no juror's going to convict him over this. When you look at all of the evidence here, no way.
Right.
So, I don't know. I just think they miss, and they got personally involved, and it was a personal vendetta against Michael Jackson, and Tom Sneddon. I'm going to get him before I get up out of it, before I die. And
when you found out he died, what were your thoughts?
Beg your pardon?
When you found out he died, what did you say to yourself?
Oh, I didn't know. I was just thinking what other people were thinking, but I didn't really. I wasn't a fan of Tom Sneddon's, but I don't wish. I actually felt bad for his family, but I didn't really feel. I didn't feel anything for Tom Sneddon. He's not a fan. I didn't like the guy because I thought he misused his authority, and I think that's done to this day too many times to people. They put these people on pedestals because they're DAs or whatever, but people are people, and people are imperfect. I don't care what workforce you go into, what field you go into, you have imperfect people, and sometimes they misuse their power, their authority, But he was definitely one of them, I think, just based on my observations. And I went into it like, I had spent enough time with Michael and interacted with his family. And when I say his family, I'm talking about Prince, Paris, and Blanket, because we were in, I think, Florida for like 8 months or something like that. 6 months, maybe? I think we were in Florida for like 6 months. And beg your pardon?
You remember what part? North Miami?
Heck yeah. Yeah, we were in Miami.
Biscayne
Bay. It was nice.
Biscayne Bay. It was beautiful.
Yeah, we spent a long time at right there at 16th and Collins at the Lowe's, Miami Lowe's Beach, right there in South Beach, Miami. Yeah,
there's another pop icon I wanted to talk to you about. She had an accident yesterday. This clip, I want to play the audio clip courtesy of earlier today on the talk. It's about Madonna. Let's come back on the other side.
See, unfortunately for Madonna, she is in a genre of music which is pop music. If she were a country singer, a blues singer, an R&B singer,
even rock and roll,
you go with the age. But there never has been a 56-year-old successful pop singer before. But that's her, and her competition in that genre is 20-year-olds, That's her competition, all those little 20-year-olds. So it's not her age, it's her music. You've never seen a 56-year-old do pop music before, but we have Madonna, so we embrace her for it. But even Lady Gaga knew that she was at the age where she had to do something else. I can't keep doing. Anyway, Lady Gaga can sing the blues, she can sing standards, she can sing musical theater, which she's proved to everybody because she's got the pipes. The thing about Madonna is she's a very creative woman, but she doesn't have the pipes to sing musical theater
standards.
Can't do it.
Yeah.
Well, I agree with you about the Instagram. She said they don't talk about what on Instagram. This bitch must not have Instagram. You're right. Don't they on social media? They talk about you like a dog. They don't care. You know how many times I have been called a fat black hole? Yes.
I mean, her claim that people wouldn't dare to say racist or sexist or weightist things is untrue. That's all the internet is racism and sexism and homophobia, peppered by a few nice comments. But I will say this: I do think that it still is okay to make fun of people. In some places, it's okay to make fun of people being old, but that's because we're all going to get old. We all are. It's the one. I'm not going to one day wake up and be a different race. You know what I mean? Or wake up. But we're all going to get old, and so I think we all feel comfortable making those jokes because we all know what's coming for all of us. We're all in the same club in that particular sense. So someday I'm going to be up here and be like, "Ooh, I just sat down, my hip popped." I don't know if you heard that. By the way, that's probably going to happen tomorrow.
Okay, Kerry, your thoughts on Madonna? She had an little accident yesterday. She fell. Your thoughts on what they were talking about?
Wow, that was an interesting couple of comments. That was regular TV, or was that The View?
Yeah, it was courtesy of the talk on CBS television.
I don't know. I don't really
Sharon
know Madonna.
Osbourne.
I saw the actual fall on YouTube today. And I don't know. Michael had some interesting things to say about Madonna to me, and I didn't know that existed. But I'm going to keep that one between Michael and I right now. But as far as her professionally, I've never really been a big Madonna fan. I don't know. She seems to be in good shape. I've heard people talk about her performance at the whatever this thing is she just did. But I don't know. I know she's one of the ones that, to me, that was supposed to be a friend and was nowhere to be found during the roughest time of Michael's life. I know I never heard a phone call from her, and that's not to say that she didn't call, but, when you hear a few from other big names, yeah, and then, like I said, I know what Michael shared with me as well, and I'll just say that I think he felt kind of abandoned. I think he would have enjoyed getting a call from her, but that didn't.
Well, on record, what he told to what he told to the Rabbi Shmuley in 1999 is that he really didn't care for Madonna. Who knows what happened between after that till 2009? Maybe they spoke, maybe they didn't. But
I don't know.
Maybe you'll shed some light into that. But tragedy with that situation. Another person I want to talk to you about is Whitney Houston, but let me play you a clip first, and then I want to talk to you about Whitney and the daughter.
Bobbi Kristina, who is clinging to life as we speak. It is nearly 3 years to the day that her mother so tragically passed away. In tonight's Big Picture, Whitney and Bobbi Kristina's Circle of Tragedy.
I still feel her everywhere. She's still around me. And that's what keeps me comfortable, is that knowing that my best friend, my everything is still with me.
No one will ever really know how deep the grief runs through Bobbi Kristina's soul. She meant everything to Whitney. When the singer was 7.5 months pregnant with her daughter, she was glowing and spending Christmas with children from her hometown of Newark.
Seeing their faces and so happy and so full of joy, I think that's what Christmas is all about. It's all about giving.
Bobbi Kristina was born in March of 1993.
Look at this little lady! My baby. I'm real proud of her. She's a good girl.
3 years later, Whitney broke the news to E.T. Another baby was on the way.
Whitney's having a baby, Whitney's having a baby, Bobbi and Whitney having a baby. Yeah. So I went to the doctor and that old EPT said, "Boom!
It's blue.
It's blue. It's a plus."
Sadly, Whitney lost the baby shortly after this interview. The Houston women have had to bear a lot of grief. A year after Whitney's passing, I sat down with her mother, Sissy, who was still suffering. Have you really come to terms?
No.
No?
No, I haven't. Wasn't it good? Wasn't it good? Wasn't it?
Sissy instilled the love of gospel music in her daughter, and Whitney was the bright light in her life.
You two had a special bond. You had 2 boys. What did it mean to finally have that daughter when you had her?
That girl was all I ever wanted. I wanted a daughter. Put them pretty little dresses and nice bows on it, all that kind of stuff. And just, you make believe. Mm-hmm. Well, I guess that was part of my life with her.
In this 1988 interview, you can see how the Houston women meant everything to each other.
She's my friend, She's my mom, she's my friend, she's my teacher, and all those things. She's like a little gas station, when you need some strength, you just go to mom and she, fills you up.
That's a little bit, of what my mother and I had. That's the bond that we share, and we did share. We still share that bond, no matter what, even after death.
When you listen to Bobbi Kristina talking like that, she really did seem to be handling her grief well at that time.
And all of this situation, briefly, to her aunt, who is taking care of Bobbi Kristina for so long, hospital for mental and physical exhaustion. This is so much on these women who are close-knit.
Yeah.
Courtesy of Entertainment Tonight, carry a sad situation with Whitney Houston dying. Give me your thoughts on that. And now with in a coma, daughter Bobbi Kristina. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Jordan, it's a tragic situation, man. I feel for them, all that family, especially Whitney's mom, and now she's lost her daughter, and her granddaughter is not doing well. From what I hear, I can only go by what I hear in the media. But it's a tragic situation, man. It's very unfortunate. I know Whitney and Michael had a relationship.
Did they really?
Well, when I say relationship, I don't mean romantic. I mean, I know that they were friends. I don't know about any romance, but I know she was there. She didn't
They had
distance
respect
herself.
for each other.
Yeah,
Right.
and Whitney's big, but she was one of those people that was there
Oh, yeah.
in terms of call and comforting. I know I heard him speaking with her, and obviously she didn't care what her publicist said. If publicist, that was the publicist thing, then to distance yourself from Michael Jackson when he was in a bad time, but it's an unfortunate thing, and it's just sad, man. I all you can do is just pray for the mom. You look at a mom like that, Whitney's mom, and it's like, can you imagine what she's going through? You don't usually bury your children. That's not natural.
That's not natural,
So
right?
not only that, it's like now your grandchild, the only thing that I don't know you may have been holding on to in terms of something from Whitney is her daughter, and now she's in need of some serious prayer, and it's a tragic situation. It really is. I don't wish that on anybody. I tell you, I really don't. I hope she comes through it. I hope all the fans
Looks like it'd be a
continue to
miracle.
pray for them. Yeah, from what they're saying, I don't know, but God is still in the miracle business, So I don't know. It's tragic.
Would you say if Michael is the king of pop, would you say she is the queen of pop?
Oh yeah, Whitney's something else. You just listen to her stuff, and everybody was really rooting for her to really, come back. It seems like she was on her way back. I saw her in the Oprah interview she did. She looked very well there. That voice had come back. It seems like her voice was strengthened, and I guess she had enough time off for it to recuperate or do whatever she needed to do. But she was definitely the lady. I still get chills every time I hear Whitney's song. Certain songs she did, and
that one
there's
in that
certain
movie
people, man,
was,
that are just
special.
gifted. Michael was one, and Whitney was one. That's for sure. That's a different kind of level. Those two,
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Another subject I wanted you to talk about is controversial Rudy Giuliani. But before you comment, I want to play this clip for the audience, and then I'll get your comment on the other side.
Rudy Giuliani, former politician and current guy who appears on TV, is not going to back down from his verbal attacks against President Obama. On Thursday, at a fundraiser for Scott Walker, he said this: "I do not believe, and I know this is a horrible thing to say, but I do not believe that the president loves America. He doesn't love you, and he doesn't love me. He wasn't brought up the way you were brought up, and I was brought up through love of this country." Now, many people responded to that by saying that it was another in a string of extremely racist comments from the former mayor. He says some people thought it was racist. I thought that was a joke, since he was brought up by a white mother, a white grandfather, went to white schools, and most of this he learned from white people. This isn't racism. This is socialism, or possibly anti-colonialism. No, but that last thing you said there is also racism. When you were saying it was not racism, you made another racist comment there.
Pretty sure the schools you went to were integrated. I don't think they were white schools. I might be wrong, but I think we call them integrated now, yeah.
Yeah, and of course he even bungles that explanation. He says, this isn't racism, referring to what he said.
Yeah.
And then he says, this is socialism, anti-colonialism, meaning what he said is socialism.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he didn't mean that, but yeah, but he's again referring to Obama is from Kenya, so he's against colonialism. When did we become okay to be pro-colonialism?
We're a country that rebelled against our colonialism, right?
I mean, the whole revolution, the American Revolution, was against colonialism.
We're all anti-colonial. Who is it?
You know who was anti-colonial? George Washington,
Yes.
Thomas Jefferson, and James Madison and John Adams. These guys risked their lives to be anti-colonialists.
You know who was a colonialist? King George. He was a bit of a colonialist.
Yeah. You know what? It actually makes me think that perhaps Rudy Giuliani doesn't love this country like I do and like you do, Jimmy. And he might not even love me or Ben or John as much as, real Americans do.
Also, there's a great piece today in the New York Daily News written by Wayne Barrett, who I guess has written a book on.
Oh yeah, I read
Rudy.
this article.
Yeah, it's just worth bringing.
It shows
up.
you what a piece of shit Rudolph Giuliani is,
Also,
right?
but he talks
detailed.
What's
in
the
detail.
quote? What's the quote, John? The part about his family, sort of that. Or just go through some of that.
He was raised by a white mother, a white grandfather.
No, but he wasn't raised like you and me, right?
Yes, that's what he said. He wasn't raised like you and me. He wasn't raised to be a thrice divorced womanizer who uses the. Go ahead.
First wife was his cousin.
Rudy Giuliani.
Yeah, second cousin, and then he got the church to annul it.
That's right,
because she was his cousin.
Yes,
it didn't come as a surprise.
It's a true story.
Yeah, true story.
It's true story.
Classy guy.
Classy guy.
But you know what? No, he was raised, but Giuliani is one of us. He was raised just like me.
Just like me.
Yeah. When I was growing up, they told me to fuck my cousin, and that because when I divorced her, I could easily get it annulled.
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
It says here, Rudy may have forgotten the half-dozen deferments he won ducking the Vietnam War. Again, he was raised right. Even
about his
getting the
parents?
federal judge he was clerking for to write a letter creating a special exemption for him. Right, that's another thing. Rudy cited, let's talk about his father, Harold Giuliani.
Because it's the guy who raised him.
Yeah, he and 5 of Rudy's uncles, they all managed to avoid service in World War II. Harold, his father, was able to avoid the service in World War II because he was a felon, because he robbed a milkman in Harlem.
With a gun.
With a gun. And then
a thug from Harlem.
A thug from Harlem.
Yeah. And then wrote and then used the fact that it was in fact that he was a felon to get out of service.
To get out of service.
in World War II.
He told the draft board that he was a felon.
Really.
Just like Obama's grandfather avoided. Oh no, that's right. They liberated Buchenwald.
Yeah.
Obama's family.
Obama's family.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. But I love this idea that Giuliani and all other conservatives cannot, by definition, be racist against Obama because Obama's mom was white. So that's it. I can say anything I want about him. He can say anything he wants. He can call him the N-word. He can call him anything and say, no, it's okay. I can't be racist because his mom is white.
Now, he did appear on Fox News to double down on this assertion, and then we have a little surprise find of J.R. Jackson that we'll show afterward.
I'm not questioning his patriotism. He's a patriot, I'm sure. What I'm saying is that in his rhetoric, I very rarely hear him say the things that I used to hear Ronald Reagan say, the things I used to hear Bill Clinton say about how much he loves America. I do hear him criticize America much more often than other American presidents. And when it's not in the context of an overwhelming about the exceptionalism of America, it sounds like he's more of a critic than he is a supporter.
Yeah, so he is just waiting to hear Obama, in his rhetoric, actually talk about how much he loves America. So let's roll this montage.
I love this country, and so do you.
I am really optimistic about America.
America will remain the anchor of strong alliances in every corner of the globe. No one has a greater stake in a peaceful world than its most powerful nation.
Our economy is stronger than just about anybody's. Our energy production is better than just about anybody's.
My father got a scholarship to study in a magical place, America, that shone as a beacon of freedom and opportunity to so many who had come before.
Our young people are just incredibly talented and gifted.
America is a place where all things are possible. In no other country on earth is my story even possible. The son of a single mom can be president of the greatest nation on earth. A nation that triumphed over fascism and depression. A nation where the most innovative businesses turned out the world's best products.
Our businesses have the strongest balance sheets that they've had in decades.
This nation is great because we built it together. But I believe America is exceptional. This nation is great because we worked as a team. I believe in American exceptionalism with every fiber of my being. This nation is great because we get each other's backs. What makes America exceptional are the bonds that hold together the most diverse nation on earth.
Part of the reason I love campaigning is you travel around the country, folks are just good.
The United States has been one of the greatest sources of progress that the world has ever known. Then I remain confident that the future still looks brighter than the past. and that the best days for this country we love are still ahead. We have all the best cards relative to every other country on earth. Love and charity and duty and patriotism, that's what makes America great. We will continue our journey forward and remind the world just why it is that we live in the greatest nation on earth. Thank you, America. God bless you.
I hope Giuliani was watching.
Yeah, but what exactly did he mean by greatest nation on earth?
Yeah.
So
in the universe, hello.
Could I just say, Giuliani said no doubt he's a patriot, but he doesn't love the country. So if you go to the dictionary, the definition of a patriot, are you ready for this? The definition of a patriot, a person who loves, supports, or defends his or her country.
Yeah.
So I think he's a patriot, but he doesn't love the country. That's like, you can't be, he's a tall guy, but he's short for a tall guy.
Kerry, I know you've been following the Rudy Giuliani his stupid comment, in my opinion. What was your thoughts on what you just heard?
Yeah, I'm not a Rudy Giuliani fan because I know he doesn't represent my interest at all.
Amen.
I think he's an idiot. You know, he's just like majority of these conservative, Republican guys, and it's sad because it's all about, I think, racism. I really do. Some of the things that they are accusing the president of, like his executive power, and from people like Eisenhower to Reagan to Bush 1, Bush 2, did the same thing. They all utilized their executive power to do something with immigration, and it didn't become a problem until he did it. These guys are just sore losers. They control the Senate and the Congress, but they want that seat. They want to be the president of the United States, and it's just sad, man, that people. You got the thing now with, Congress won't pass a bill with the immigration. They're dealing with the Homeland Security issue right now. I think if it doesn't pass, they don't sign it in a couple of days or a day. 31,000 people will be furloughed. Our first responders won't get their grants. Our police officers won't get their grants. And it's just so sad that all they want President Obama to do is to fail. And they'll do whatever they have to do to make him fail, but they won't prevail, and I don't know, to me it just shows their lack of patriotism and lack of love for this country. They love themselves. That's what they love, but I think Giuliani is an idiot. I really do, and that's putting it nice, but he doesn't represent my interest at all. So that's my comment about him.
Totally agree with you. Last year was the 20-year anniversary of the O.J. chase. This October will be the 20-year anniversary of O.J.'s acquittal. And I have a piece of Tom Mesereau and I were talking about it. I want to play this for you, and then I want to get your take on the O.J. case on the other side.
Political supporters. In California, you can be appointed or elected, and if you're appointed, you then have to run for election. So there's a political component to what judges have to do to survive. So what you're saying is correct.
Since we are coming up, though, on the, I just get you back to Wade in a second. We are coming up to, in October, it'll be 20 years that O.J. Simpson was acquitted. Now, in the idea that we're talking about judges, what is your honest and full opinion of Judge Ito?
Judge Ito, throughout his career, was one of the brightest and one of the fairest judges in Los Angeles. He was a former prosecutor. His wife is a police officer. But nevertheless, he tried as best he could to be balanced and fair. And the defense bar acknowledged that in a world of pro-prosecution judges, this man really tried to be fair and follow the law. And unfortunately, after the O.J. Simpson acquittal, his career was permanently damaged. He could never get to the Court of Appeals, which is a higher court, even though he deserved to be there. And my reaction to your question is maybe some of the behavior he demonstrated in the Simpson case, given the enormous media glare, in retrospect, he probably would have changed, but I think he's one of the best judges we've had in the history of LA County. I think he did his best to try and follow the law and be fair to everybody, and I think he got a bad rap in many ways. I really do.
Absolutely, and now we are coming back in 20 years. Just a brief glimpse of before we get back to Wade, that whole trial. Did the prosecution win it, or did the defense win? Let me rephrase that. Did the prosecution lose it, or did this defense win it? What do you think is more closer to the truth?
I think there was a little of both. I think the defense lawyers were brilliant. I think Johnny Cochran was the best trial lawyer I've ever seen, the most talented I've ever seen. He combined enormous experience with enormous skill and with a great sense of humility and compassion and kindness to others. And he knew how to seize the moment and knew strategically what he had to do. He knew when to be ruthless. He knew when to be respectful. He knew when to be kind and generous. And at the same time, he was vigorously trying to defend his client. And he was just the most brilliant trial lawyer I know of. He was also joined by Barry Scheck, who was one of the greatest lawyers in American history. His pioneering use of DNA to exonerate innocent people is unparalleled. He's one of the greatest lawyers ever, and he was brilliant in that case.
Alan Dershowitz.
Alan Dershowitz was sort of behind the scenes doing, motion work and legal research. He didn't try any of the case, and he was a great addition.
Was racially accused of inappropriate sex with a minor, but the timeline didn't make any sense. To make a quick statement about that, he showed proof that he wasn't at these places that they were, but it's just he said it was more of an indictment of the lawyer actually bringing that up, but that's another story. But you do have a good feeling about Judge.
I mean, back to your question, Peter Neufeld was also a DNA expert. You had F. Lee Bailey had some great moments in the trial. I don't think Shapiro,
he was a great cross-examiner. I've been told by some of my legal analysts that come up here.
Well, I studied F. Lee Bailey.
Would you agree with that?
I studied F. Lee Bailey's books. He's written some great books that any trial lawyer should read and think about. Johnny Cochran wrote 2 wonderful books. As I said, Barry Scheck, Peter Neufeld, great lawyers. I don't think you needed Shapiro on the team. I don't think he added much of anything, in my opinion. But the defense did a fabulous job.
Was he let go, Shapiro?
No. He was there throughout the trial. He took some witnesses. He didn't do the opening or
was Howard Weitzman there?
No, Howard Weitzman initially represented J. Simpson. He left the representation of Simpson, and there are differing opinions on why he left. Reportedly, he says that he wanted to leave. Simpson claimed he got rid of him, but who knows what the truth is? I wasn't there. I don't know. I really don't know. But Weitzman was with him initially when you had the Bronco chase. Weitzman met Simpson at Simpson's home, and then Shapiro ended up replacing Weitzman. But the prosecution,
that was just fascinating.
By the same token, I think the prosecution, did a poor job. They were dedicated, to getting a conviction, but they seemed very immature and very outmatched by the defense. And they could have done a much better job presenting their case.
I totally agree. Okay, Kerry, first your thoughts on what Tom Mesereau said, and then your personal thoughts on Judge Ito and the O.J. Simpson. I know I had you on the anniversary last year, and you got into it with Richard Herman. But
oh yeah, that guy. Yeah, I echo the same sentiments that Tom Mesereau. I know Judge. Well, I actually don't know Judge Ito, but I know his wife Peggy York. She was a captain with LAPD when I was on, and I knew her. But I say the same thing. I think he tried to do his job. He tried to keep things within the law, and I thought he did an amazing job. Now, quite naturally, the thing was televised and scrutinized so heavily. But it's interesting, one of the statements that Tom Mesereau made is that they were outmatched. I think O.J. Simpson's attorneys, they totally outmatched Marcia Clark and Chris Darden. I really do.
Yes.
Kind of like a JV varsity kind of thing, you know. But like LAPD gave him a lot of lead, just a lot of things to cross-examine on, you know. And those guys did an amazing job, you know. Johnny Cochran was brilliant. You know, F. Lee Bailey was brilliant.
Oh, yes.
It was
just
an amazing
cross-examination he did on Detective.
Oh, my God. Yeah, I did. Mark Furman, yeah. Play the tape. Yeah, that's yeah. And I know Mark Furman, too, you know. But it was interesting. I tell you what, that trial was seen all over the world.
Yes.
And I'm sure that people wanted to be lawyers after that, you know. But it was
Marcia
something.
Clark came out with a book, $1 million book.
Yeah, Chris Darden came out with a book. Marcia Clark came out with one. Mark Furman came out with he's a CNN analyst, or a Fox News analyst now. You know, the
Fox, yeah.
Guy that perjured himself on
CNN
the
wanted
stand,
him.
you know? Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yes, we have some comments and questions in the chat. Anne Cavanova, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Okay, she says, or he, really happy to hear that you were talking and supporting Michael in praying for your enemy. Then Anne writes, this will distinguish your book from others. It's the type of Christ that is the ultimate test of character. Can you talk more about teaching MJ on this?
Well, can I talk about more? Well, I'll get into it in the chapters in the book where we just, you know, talked about, you know, just some basic elementary things that I've been taught as relates to when things aren't going your way and they're out of your control and you have no other recourse. You've tried everything, and you haven't tried this spiritual principle of forgiveness and praying for your enemies. You know, I'm going to go more into the book of what I actually told Michael and some of the conversations we had, and some of them were like, it was scary at times because it's like, what do you mean? You know, what do you mean pray for somebody? How do you pray for somebody? I never will forget that. How do you pray for somebody that's trying to destroy your family and your children? Like, wow. I understand it doesn't make sense, but faith does not make sense. Faith is faith and sense is sense, you know. So faith doesn't make sense,
and,
you know.
And he also asks, can you tell us more about the physical symptoms Michael was experiencing that sent him to the hospital?
No, I don't want to really get into that. I mean, he was sick. I mean, I don't want to describe all of it, but he was not well physically, weak. I'll just say that he was weak, and he was doing the normal things you do when you're obviously sick, you know, where you want to rush somebody to the hospital. You know, I'll just keep it at that.
They asked, did he ever talk about, I'm sure he did, but did he ever bring up Jordy Chandler case? And if so, what did he say about it? Did he ever bring up the 93 case to you?
No, he didn't really bring that up to me. No, he really didn't. You know, it's interesting
Okay,
too.
and,
You talk about the pressure. When we went to the hospital one time, do you know there was a lawsuit that was generated out of that because some family said that they all jumped on. Do you remember that?
The Joe's got that all covered. No, I remember it vaguely, but I saw it recently on Jolanda's video, Luna Joe 67.
Yeah, man, that was serious. And apparently, that lady passed.
Somebody died, right?
Blamed it on, they blamed it on Michael and tried to sue him. It's like, this man can even legitimately get sick and not get sued. It's terrible.
Oh, my gosh. They ask, Ann from the chat is asking, was there any surprises for you, Kerry, about Michael in Javon Beard, Bill Wilfield's book, Remember the Time?
I didn't read his book, so I don't know.
You haven't had a chance to read his book.
No. When did that book come out? Is it recently been released, or has it been out for a while?
I know he's been going on a lot of shows promoting it. That came out, I think, somebody in the chat told me, it's no longer than a year now.
Is he a security guy, or is he, what's his relationship?
Bill, I'll spell the last name, W-H-I-T Field. I think it was that big guy.
I don't know.
I don't know if
I
you're
think
in
those
the
are
same shit.
those are some former security guys.
Oh, it came out last June, they tell us now. Came out last June. And Bill and Javon was security from 06 to 09, they're telling us. And Cavanova is telling us.
No, I did read a little bit of that, but I haven't read that book in its entirety, so I couldn't make a statement on it or not. But I think those were two of the security guys, former security guys, and I think they were only with Michael, I think, like 6 months or something like that. I'm not sure. I think if that's the book she's referring to, but I didn't read enough of it to form an opinion about it.
Okay, so you only read pieces of it. It seems to be an okay book, from what I heard, but it sounds like you're putting a lot of time and effort into your book. Without getting into specifics, what would you say to people that are listening now why they should buy your book? And I know that obviously there's some reasons, but maybe you could tell the audience from your heart what you have in mind without getting into detail.
Yeah, my book is going to be genuine. I'm going to go into my life. How I was raised, how Michael was raised, and when I say that, a lot of people want to know, how we got started, how I got hooked up with Michael, what did I do before, but it's going to be a genuine book. I have no ulterior motives. I do want to share some of the experience that I've had with Michael. I think he's been misrepresented as a father, as a person, as a philanthropist, and we have some commonalities in terms of we both went through some things that were out of our control, and they were kind of unexpected. And I shared some things with him that I did, some spiritual principles about Jesus and forgiveness that I did that I just want to share with everybody else because it got me through it, and I believe it sustained Michael when nothing else would. And it's going to be a real good book. We spent some time together, and a lot of people didn't know that. They saw us a lot in court, but we spent significant time together in Florida prior to that. I stayed at Neverland with him. I don't know of any other guys that really ever did, but I stayed at Neverland for a while, and I got to know him as a father, as a regular human being, and I just want to share some of those experiences, and I think people will enjoy it. If you're a Michael Jackson fan, and then maybe if you're a Michael Jackson enemy, you'll enjoy it as well. But I'm going to tell the truth. I'm going to be sincere about it. I'm a straight shooter, and I really think you'll enjoy the book. I really do.
Do you have, you don't have to say who, but I'm saying, do you have, like, good people that you're working with to produce this book?
Yeah, I'm going to be, I'll just leave it at that. Yeah, I'm going to have some professionals, believe me. Yeah.
Okay, the final topic I wanted to ask you is about the legalization of pot. Earlier this week, D.C. legalized pot. Let's take a listen to this clip. Take on the other side.
Are you guys happy to be here?
Yeah, it's beyond happy.
Happily and legally. Smoking up in the nation's capital.
For the first time ever, recreational marijuana is being smoked without regulation, without taxation, in Barack Obama's backyard.
No one at this midnight pot party a stranger to using marijuana, but for those who enjoy it, being able to use it legally, a new and nearly emotional experience.
For the first time, I feel safe, and I feel respected, and I feel comfortable.
Not everyone so satisfied. The chairman of the congressional committee overseeing the District of Columbia insists the city is breaking the law in allowing residents to smoke.
Free reign on marijuana use, I just don't buy that. I just don't think that's the way they should operate. So states' rights, yes, but Washington, D.C. is not a state.
Congress has stopped D.C. from allowing recreational sales, but the cultivation, possession, and use here now legal for anyone over 21.
What is this going to be called?
It's called Capitol Hemp.
Capitol Hemp.
Yeah.
When will you open?
We're hoping to open by April 20th, 420.
Adam Eidinger readying for 420 friendly D.C. He started the pot legalizing Initiative 71 after his head shop here was raided. He and his staff arrested. The business shut down.
They raided your old shop?
Yeah, the police raided 2 stores in the middle of the night with 35 police officers.
Eidinger says it was that very treatment sparking his passion to legalize marijuana here and more.
We didn't just focus on passing our marijuana initiative, but we focused on making sure that politicians were elected that were going to support us once they got in office.
A sort of pot revolution that is happening here in Washington. A simple but powerful message.
It's very weird to be able to do this on a camera and know that it's okay.
First question, did you ever smoke pot, A? And B, what do you think of the legalization of marijuana?
No, I've never smoked it. Never have, never will. It? But I don't think it should be illegal. I think you should legalize it if that's what people want to do. I know that there's both sides can argue what it does to you, but I say why not legalize it if that's what you want to do. I know alcohol has been proven to be deleterious and damaging to your health, and it's not illegal. And that's definitely, it's not good. But, and same thing with nicotine.
Right.
Nicotine has been proven to be damaging to your health. It's not good for you. And, I say, make people pay taxes.
Right, make it 21 like beer.
Absolutely. If you're going to do it, I don't know why it hasn't been legalized. Like I said, if you have cigarettes that are legal, and they are definitely not good to your health, so much where there's a disclaimer, it causes cancer. It's addictive, okay? And, one could argue both sides of it on marijuana. Like I said, I've never used it, never had, and never will, but it has nothing to do with me. And I think it's something that I saw a 60-minute thing. It was on, I think, somewhere in Silicon Valley where all these people, because of the economy, and then they got into this legalized marijuana, cultivating it and going to class, legally sell it and all of that, and they all became millionaires. And the tax base, the state benefited from it tremendously just based on the taxes that were generated from it. So, like I said, I've never used it, never have, never will, but I don't see why it shouldn't be, legalized. I really don't. especially when you have other things out there that have been proven to be very dangerous to your health that are, legal. So that's my opinion.
Right. One last thing, they're talking about the picture that I used to advertise the show for tonight in the chat, where he is holding a black umbrella over Michael Jackson, and he is wearing a very interesting striped shirt. When was that taken?
Oh, that was in we were in Oman. That was in 2005. Yeah, that was right after
the acquittal.
trial. Yeah, it was after the
okay.
acquittal.
Yeah,
we were in Oman, Muscat, Oman is where we were. Yeah, that was an interesting day. We were actually at an event where several people from Oman, what they were basically doing in the United Arab Emirates is trying to compete with Dubai. Oman and Bahrain they wanted Michael to come over and endorse the Disney World, Disneyland business thing, and quite naturally, if Michael would endorse it and bring entertainers and do things there, then come. So that was what it was all about. But that was in Muscat, Oman. Very nice people, loving people. Michael enjoyed himself tremendously over there, and he recuperated. He felt like a human being again. As opposed to a cooped up prisoner.
Who took that picture? Do you remember? Who took that picture?
No, I really don't. There were several people out there with cameras. We were in front of several people out there.
I mean, in hindsight, I'm glad I would think you're glad that it's out there. You could always look back at any pictures with Michael, and not just to say
I've got a few out there. Thank God. Yeah.
A lot throughout the trial, and no shortage of you with Michael, and it should definitely be a interesting read. What do we got? About 3-4 months of the book, roughly.
Yeah.
Hopefully
I
this
hope
cold
so.
weather and then
we'll get it out at that particular time, and like I said, it's going to be an interesting read. If you're a Michael Jackson fan, or if you're not a Michael Jackson fan, I had a very interesting career that led up to it, and it's just interesting how we pass. And I think God put us in each other's lives for a certain reason at a certain time, and when that was over with, then it was over. But it did exist. We had a relationship. Amazing times with him and just living with him in different locations and just different he did, I with him a month. He told me to go out and find him a house. In Miami, and myself and Grace Rwamba, we went out and found we found something, but it was just interesting. It was a whole other level. I never worked with a... Beg your pardon?
Are you still using that computer that he got you?
Oh, yeah.
That laptop you were telling me?
Yeah, that's not going
still
anywhere.
Good. Wow.
Yeah,
you must
not
take
going.
some good care of that one.
Yeah, I'm
right?
going to take care of that one. It's a Sony Vaio, yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
I'll keep that one.
Name for it yet, but as we get closer, we'll bring you back on so we could. The fans really appreciate you and everything, Michael. They're all giving you love. And they all showed up, and there's plenty of people. Everything, Michael. So a lot of fans here for you.
I appreciate it. We got fans all over the place. I got them in Australia. There's a guy named Jamin Bull.
That's the thing with Michael. I tell you, but when I started covering Michael Jackson, I swear from New York City to Australia to Rome to Greece to Holland to he is so
the Netherlands.
Popular.
We got our friend Jolanda. Jolanda We got Myra
Italy.
from Serbia. We got the Munichs, Stephanie, Bridget, and Sonia. In the Philippines,
right.
we got a big following in the Philippines. Nens, Beliza.
The Philippines, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think there's ever been an
thank
artist
God,
for that.
Yeah, I never will forget when
one last question there. That they're asking, Anne is asking, wondering how Michael felt about Frank DeLeo coming back for trial. Was he helpful during that time? That's from Anne in the chat room.
Absolutely.
You know anything about
I didn't. I saw this little guy showing up all of a sudden. Like, who is this guy? Because he was he was in there. And I didn't really know as much as some of the fans knew. So they got fans that know some amazing things. They're like historical, just professionals over Michael. But I didn't really know Frank DeLeo.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, this guy shows up and he's with us. And but then I got to know that Michael loved Frank, and he loved his something about
Frank.
his management style, I guess. But yeah, Frank, Michael loved Frank as far as I know, and I know if he
was with him the
Michael
night
didn't
before,
want him there. Michael didn't want him there. He wouldn't have been there, but he was definitely requested to be there, and I think they were going to be successful with the because he was involved in the This Is It tour thing too. I don't know, and ultimately what his role was,
So
but
pretty much,
I still think
whoever Michael didn't want there wouldn't be there. So if Michael just hypothetically saying, I don't want Jermaine around, I'll just use Jermaine wouldn't be around, right?
Right, but I don't think that would happen. But I
That never happened.
there were some other people that some family members brought that Michael was like, get this guy away from me. It's like, whoa, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what we did, But sometimes, you have people, these scammers that show up to things. It's like, how in the world did they get this close to us? But they probably walked in with, they have their little tactics in doing that. They'll recognize a family member and they might really know them. And then they'll, just start talking. And then as we're walking in, they start walking in, that kind of thing. There was a couple of characters like that there. But believe me, when Michael made it be known, if he didn't want them around, they were going to be out after that, So it was interesting, but the book's going to be good. It's going to be interesting, revealing. I'm going to share some things that a lot of people don't know. I'm going to share some things about fans that people, how much he loved them. How
Are you going to mention any fans by name?
Yeah, he knew them by name. He called some of them. It was like, wow.
Amazing.
And nobody, I don't know of anybody that knows that, It's going to create it's going to be something, I tell you. It really is. But it happened.
One thing is
really
for sure,
did.
though, Michael Jackson, his name will live on forever.
Oh, man,
with these fans, they get bigger and bigger.
Yep, absolutely.
And we only in the
Absolutely.
5th anniversary right now as we speak.
Yeah. And the evil that they tried to do to him backfired on him, Yeah.
Right. And he's selling more records now than ever, Not as much as Thriller, obviously, but he's still in the top 10 with that album that we spoke about last time. The hologram, would you like to
I think so.
about that
I only saw it in bits and pieces, but I would, the part
Fans
that I
had
saw was
different reactions
nice.
about that.
Yeah,
I got excited
you got the hardcore.
because you got the energy of Michael Jackson. Obviously, you can't bring back the real thing, but you had that fire about Michael. You know what I'm saying? That's what I felt when I saw it. Obviously, there's no way that nobody could come close to looking like the king of pop when he's doing his thing. But some people take what you could get. I like.
Absolutely.
Some people that.
Yeah.
That was just my opinion. But,
well, like I said,
again,
I only saw it in a piece, and the part that I did see, I did like. So I would,
and
as
the
long as
crowd
Prince
was
and
definitely
Paris
into it.
and
The crowd was bumping to it. The crowd was definitely into it.
Yeah, they seem to be enjoying it. I tell you, they really did. You know, and you can only think it can only get better in terms of technology. It's just like I thought it was rumors that he was going to do some part of the Super Bowl or something. I don't know, but
did you see
I
the
tell you, with
Tupac
technology,
hologram?
they can make
Did you get a chance to see the Tupac hologram about 2 years ago? I think it was Tupac.
No. No, I didn't.
Oh, you didn't see that, huh? Oh, okay.
No, I haven't seen that.
Yes, check that out one time. It's really cool. He's doing something on there with Snoop Dogg.
Wow. 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I thought Michael's was kind of the first time
that was the
kind of
first.
done that at a show, you know.
And there's an Elvis one, believe it or not. You know, that goes back years ago, but
yeah,
it's crazy what they can do now.
I tell you what, there's no telling what they can do. You know. Yeah.
Ann says Frank said none of MJ's former later managers ever called to support him. Is that true or false? From what you know.
I don't know. I really don't. I know Frank DeLeo was there, though. I know, especially Frank was there almost every day at the latter part of the trial, and I know if Michael didn't want him there, he wouldn't have been there. But Frank was there. Yeah, absolutely. He was very supportive.
So where can the fans go if the new fans that haven't been to you want to give out your regular Facebook site and your fan Facebook site?
Yeah, they can go to Agape KA.
Want to spell that out?
It's a. Oh my goodness, you kind of caught me off guard on that one. It's the same one that's been up. Yeah. Goodness, hold on one second.
KA.
Hold on one second.
If anybody in the chat knows the name or the link to the, you could just type it in there.
Yeah, it's, hold on, I got it right. Hold on one second. Oh, goodness, I thought I had it.
Absolutely.
I don't know. It's Agape Love. .KA.
KA, and then
Agape Love.
AGAPE.
Yeah, AGAPE. Agape Love.
Okay. There you go. Yeah.
And it's on Facebook.
Where did you come up with that name? Just curious.
Well, that's just a God kind of love. It's God's unconditional love. Like no matter what, you're supposed to love, and that's how God made this world. And it crosses all religions. It ain't about religion, you know. It's about loving everybody unconditionally. And if you can imagine, if everybody lived like that, we wouldn't have war, we wouldn't have poverty, we wouldn't have oppression. We would have peace.
Just want to let you know that Jen Niles linked it. It's www.facebook.com/K.A.QAPE love. Quick fingers. LOL, she writes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's AGAPE, not AQ. Yeah, it kind of looks like that, but.
Right. So that's that, and always a pleasure having you on, Kerry, with your insight on the world of news. Besides Michael Jackson, we could talk about Michael all day, and talking about the latest in the world of news. Always great hearing your opinions on Rudy Giuliani and all these good news and bad news that's going on in the world. Great talking to you, Kerry.
Well,
I appreciate it.
I appreciate you, Jordan, and I'll come on anytime. I appreciate it, and I appreciate all the fans that are out there. The book will be out. It's going to be a good read, and just stay on the website, and you'll see it. Hopefully it'll be out June 13th, maybe even a little bit before.
June 13th.
Yeah.
And go on that website and that Facebook site, and you'll have, I'm sure, updates sporadically, right?
Right.
As we get closer. And hopefully this winter comes to an end. Oh boy, you're lucky you're not in New York. I'll tell you, with this cold weather.
Oh my God, yeah. Well, I'm in Virginia right now, so I can relate. Believe me. Yeah.
Oh,
how cold
okay.
is it there?
You know how cold it is? It's like 10 degrees would be a heat wave at this point.
Yeah.
Right now we're
I
at
-2.
-2.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus, that's bad. God bless you. I'm glad I'm not there. Glad I'm not there, Jordan.
So maybe you'll come on in a month or so, and we'll talk more.
Okay, sounds good.
About
Anytime, I'd love
hot
to.
topic.
Hopefully, I'll have some more information, and there's no telling what's going to be happening in the world at that time. I just pray for peace, and everybody keep loving each other and doing what's
Stop
right.
the hating.
Yep.
That's right. That's what Michael Jackson preached. Love, right?
He did, man. He was a peaceful guy, and it's sad that they didn't give it when he was here. But it seems like all the great peacemakers, man, they get taken out of here. It's just sad. This world is something else, but it'll be all right.
Billy Joe once said, "Only the good die young."
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, Kerry. Yeah. Appreciate it. We'll
all right,
see you
Jordan.
soon.
Thank you so much, and you have a good evening.
Thank you, and God bless.
All right. Take care.
Thanks to Kerry Anderson, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate him coming on. He's a wonderful guest. Definitely go to the Facebook, keep up with him. Next week at this time, we will have Beth Karras to talk news. And once again, Kerry Anderson, a wonderful guest as usual. Stay with us. Follow us on the web, on Twitter at Mr. King Jordan, and on Facebook, facebook.com/King Jordan Radio.
Can we get a clap? 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 Yo, pardon me for beating it, beating on your eardrum, giving you something new. I know you wanna hear some, giving me that like, yo, that's the real son. Tracks sound bizarre, but it rocks so hard.
Like crack on a track, no fiends clutch surround the sound. You bloodhounds about to fill the full service. Rose above surface with a